Hey everybody, it's Andy aka Max Writer. We are back with another author's showcase, this time for The Haunted Place, which, if everything goes according to plan, came out on July 1st, and then following up with this so you can have a little bit of a look at the scenario if you so desire. These author showcases were inspired by RPG Imaginings, who did one of his own scenarios, and I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a good way for people to actually see the scenario before they decide to buy it. So this is the haunted place. Sorry, it is actually inspired by The Haunting. I wanted an alternate introductory scenario for Call of Cthulhu. The Haunting is a good scenario. It's a great scenario, but I wanted something different because generally in my own case, once I run a game, I try not to run that scenario again, mainly because it becomes part of my game world. It becomes part of the history and the fabric of the world, and running it more than once, unless there's a good reason to, like they didn't succeed the first time, I don't know, it just doesn't feel, it's just not for me. So I came up with The Haunted Place. This is also inspired by The Shunned House by H.P. Lovecraft, and quite frankly, I wanted some more stuff to take place in Providence as well. There are spoilers coming up, so if you don't want to know anything about this yet, then I suggest you go away right now. This is going to be up on DriveThruRPG, and it is available for download. Yeah, so let's get started. Here's the haunted place. We've got our cover, and the back of the cover is a list of the other things I've done. The cover page with all of our copyright and legal information. I've also Mark Clemens always put the fonts that he used in his product. I think that's a good idea, not only so people could possibly try to duplicate them, but also so that so that you see everything that we're doing. We have a Shakespearean quote here, picture of Lovecraft. Here are my playtesters. We've got our table of contents. Filled out a little bit of that with this public domain Essex Coach ad. The forward, where I discuss why I wrote this and some background and information on this. The game takes place in a building that's fabricated, unlike The Shunned House, which is based on a real story. And then on page 7, we're right into it, The Haunted Place, or The Witch of West Providence. Got your introduction. Keeper information is fairly extensive because this is all the background for the scenario. It runs all the way here. Player information is a little shorter because the players kind of get launched into this scenario. It basically starts when you hit somebody with your car, and that person has just run out of their house in a panic. He comes to you later and he says, "Hey, can you help me? My house is haunted." And the scenario goes from there. There's some small information on, or a little short bit of information on adapting the scenario, and then I talk a little bit about the locale, Providence, Rhode Island. Here's the mayor. I actually found a public domain picture of Mayor Joseph Gaynor. This takes place in 1925. It's a jazz era scenario. There's a little bit more about the Elmhurst neighborhood. I've also got a list here of other Cthulhu products that talk about Providence, including Nightmare in the Moonlight, which is my own, Spawn of Azathoth, The House of Aurelia, and Doors to Darkness. Then we get started on the main of the scenario, the man in the street. There's a storm, you're driving, you're lost in Providence, and there's a motor car accident when you strike this man who runs out of his house with your car. Do you leave him there, or is it a hit and run? The injured man gives you some information, and probably he should be taken to the hospital because he is injured. At that point, the injured man will contact the players again in a man in need and say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" Section 2, the second section actually goes into research. There's various means of research. You got your newspapers. Here's a nice picture of the Providence Journal building. I've put all of the handouts are typed up in the body of the text because I understand that some people have difficulty reading strange fonts, different fonts, that kind of thing. So they're here so that the keeper at least will have them to look at without having to deal with handwriting fonts or different typeface fonts, that kind of thing. Land records can be important in this. You can go downtown to City Hall to find out who owned the property. And then, of course, libraries, and there is a book in the library that can give you some background information and a map in another book. You can also talk to some of the victims of the whole thing, and of course talk to people in the neighborhood, although they don't have a whole lot. Third section is about the haunted house itself. 430 Academy Avenue in Providence, Rhode Island, called the Massacre House. Here's some information on what actually can happen in the house, ideas for the haunting of the house, and then the house is actually mapped out. So each location, it's broken down by floor, and then by location, and then what weird things might happen there, including what kind of sanity loss those strange events can cause. So we've got the first floor here. The second floor starts here on page 23. And the third floor starts on page 24. The third floor is just an attic, so there's not much there. There is a basement, and of course the sub-basement where the witch's lair is, not to mention some other things. This also includes information on how the witch might react to invaders in the sub-basement. The denouement is just what happens to the players at the end. If this scenario can be used for campaign play, or it can be used for convention play. I started this out basically running it as a campaign scenario, and only when one player showed up to my game, and when she kind of flaked out and didn't finish the scenario, I kind of revamped it, and we went on to convention play from there. What if the players get it completely wrong? Some keeper advice on what if your players are like, all you have to do is surround the house in a circle of salt that's based on nothing they've actually learned in the game. Then here's some idea of how to deal with that. The commitment of Jacob North comes back to the scenario. If the players fail to stop what's happening in the house, or if, like me, you want us, if you have to do a different, kind of a different. Oh, what am I trying to say here? Well, that whole sentence was all messed up. Anyway, let's start over. Hold on. So the commitment of Jacob North basically is if your characters either fail and they think they've solved the problem but they haven't, and Jacob North goes crazy, or if you wish to have a different introduction, more traditional introduction to the game, then you can use the commitment of Jacob North right from the beginning with the pre-gens that are involved here, and go from there. I personally like to hit somebody with your car. I think that's different and interesting. Sanity rewards, of course, there's only a few. Afterwards, playtest notes tell how it went with my game. There's a short bibliography, and then we've got some non-player character stats. Jacob North is older brother. We've got our antagonist, Abigail Hardy. Mary Everton, who is a pickled zombie, and actually inspired by one of my players and his backstory for a character who died his first game session several years ago. There are 2 esoteric tomes that are brand new, and they're kind of filled out here. We have a map of Providence. The large map of Providence has the area of Elmhurst and some of the locations that are mentioned in the scenario there, as well as locations for finding information, City Hall, Providence, the library, Providence Journal, Athenaeum, a couple other places, and of course another hospital down here. You've got a close-up map of Elmhurst, and then a key for all of the numbered locations on both maps. Then you've also got a close-up of the neighborhood, and of course you have the house itself. The keeper's map has the house with all locations, and then there is a map that is blank. If the keeper wishes to put this on DriveThruRPG, no. That's where it is on that right now. On roll D20 or use it online or something, they can get these maps and show the players the maps. Our handouts include many newspaper articles mostly from the Providence Journal or Providence Daily Journal, the courthouse records, even older courthouse records, and finally a small map of Providence from 1881. Plus there is a section of a book of the book Dark History of Providence, which is a fictional book. I made it up. We've got NPC pictures, good and bad, pre-generated investigator pictures, and then kind of just an overview of who the pre-generated investigators are. I found that this is useful if you're going to run online, that you can hand that out and people can go, oh, I want to play Malcolm Bitters, or I want to play Nurse Helms, or whatever, in advance, and then they know what they want when they're coming in. And finally, we have 6 pre-generated investigators. Dr. Malcolm Bitters, a parapsychologist. Ronald Sims, essentially his bodyguard / thug. Jeremy McLachlan, a salesman. Ann Helms, a nurse. Robert Newman, another architect. And Miss Amanda Carpenter, who is a teacher. And each of these has, if you know not each of them, but the last 4 have an if you know Jacob North and it tells just kind of how you might know the main NPC in the book, the one who's in trouble. Here's our inside back page, a little about the author, and finally our back page with a little blurb to try to get people interested in buying. So there it is. There is The Haunted Place. It is available at DriveThruRPG right now. If you want to go check it out, I'll put a link in the description below. And that's it. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. As always, I appreciate it, and I will talk to y'all next time.